In this lesson, we'll finish up the materials and texturing portion of the introduction to Cinema 4D by talking a little bit about body paint and setting up a quick texture. So let's go ahead and jump back into our project. So if we want to actually paint a texture on our model and create our own texture here in Cinema 4D, body paint is a really powerful way to do that. So if we go over here to our layout, I'm going to switch to, in my case, I'm going to switch to DT 3D Paint. But if you want to, you can go ahead and switch to your body paint 3D paint layout. The only difference, as I've said before, in this layout is simply the size. So we're working with a specific part of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this. All right. So I'm working with a Wacom tablet, which is a great way to work when you're painting textures. Really powerful and really reliable. Get a lot of good results. And so what I want to do now is set up our texture. So I want to set it up on the wing. So I'm going to come over here and I want to just select the wing. And so we've got the wing base selected here. And one of the quickest ways to set this up is just to go up here to our paint setup wizard. So let's go ahead and click on that. And here's our body paint 3D setup wizard. So we've got the different objects in here. So what I can do is I can go ahead and say, I want to deselect all. I don't want to have a texture for everything. I just want to have a texture for the wing base, which is what I've checked here. So anything with an X isn't going to have any textures created for it. Okay, and you can come in here and see that. Okay, so once we have the object that we want, we'll go to next, and it's actually telling us this is step 1. Now go proceed to the next step. So we'll go to step 2. Now we already have UVs on the wings. If not, you can go ahead and recreate those, but I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. Single material mode, we'll go ahead and use material. And this is where we'll define what channels we want to actually create. So if you want to create a color map, paint color on this, you can check color. I want to actually create a bump map, so I can choose bump. Okay. I'll go ahead and leave color on in case you want to create some color, but I'm pretty much going to stay with the bump for this texture. Now we can also come in here and choose the texture size, minimum, maximum. I want to actually go ahead and turn off automatic map size interpolation, and I'll just set it to be something like 2K. We'll get some good resolution in here. Okay, so set our map size. This is the size of our texture. We set the channels, so we're going to have a color channel and a bump channel that we're going to be able to create, and go ahead and say finish and close. Okay, so now I can come back in here, and for instance we can go to layers, and you can see here is our color. We can also go to our texture tab, and we can view our color and bump textures. We don't have anything in them right now. We can also show the UV mesh, which if I click on this wings base again, will show up like it should. And then we can choose to paint on the color or the bump. Okay. Now if we come over here under the materials tab, you can see here's all of our materials. Here's the color column and the bump column, and you can see we don't have anything except under this material. Okay. And this is the material here with the color. Okay. And the bump. So all we really need to do now is paint. So we need to select the channel that we want to paint through. So let's go ahead and select our bump, and we can paint in the 3D view here. Okay, let's go ahead and get a brush. So we can select the brush over here on the left hand side. You can see a lot of our painting tools, eraser, cloning, gradient. We'll go ahead and get paintbrush. And then this is where you can define your brush. Now for my case, I want to go ahead and paint in areas in here like lines, okay, for panels. But first I want to fill the texture. So I'm going to go to texture, and let's go into actual color first, and we'll fill this with color. Okay. So let's go ahead under the gradient here. We'll get our paint bucket. We can get a color, and I'll define a color over here for our color. And then we can go ahead and fill our color map with that color. Okay. We can then go to our bump map. And I'm going to take this down to 50% gray. And go ahead and fill our bump map with a gray color. Now I want to start to paint. So I'm going to get a paintbrush. And let's go back to our view. You can see this a little better. Okay. So I want to push into the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and select a color. And I'm going to choose a darker gray or black. Okay. And then you can see as I paint, it's actually cutting into the surface in our bump map. So I want to go ahead and take the size down a little bit. Okay. I'm going to take the color down more towards the black. Okay. And there's a lot of options in here for your brushes. Okay, I want my lines to be fairly consistent, so I'm not going to change a lot of these settings, but you can play around with these. Obviously, if you're doing something like an organic creature or something, you're going to be using some of these different options for pressure sensitivity and so forth. So let's go ahead and start to paint some panels in here. So I'll come here from something like this, and I'll start to paint up here. And then I can come around, come down here like that, and let's come up here a little bit from the top. Okay, I can start to come in here, come around there, and draw out, and just create some interesting panel shapes. Kind of use your judgment on how you want to do that. Just kind of break up this wing shape here that we have. Okay. And I'll do the same thing over here. And kind of draw that down. Okay. Now you can also paint in your texture view. So coming in here, you can paint on this. So if I want to just come across here and paint some lines, it's very straight here. Go ahead and paint some lines coming across there. And let me make sure this is the top over here. So coming in here, and you can kind of see those lines right in there. So you can switch back and forth. There may be some cases where it's easier to paint by coming in here and painting on our flat surface. Okay. And you can turn off the mesh, and you can see this is what our bump map looks like, but we've painted that in our 3D view in here. So that gives us some of our panels that we can use. Okay, so then once you're done, you can go ahead and save this out and save. It'll give you the option to save the changes to the texture, and you can say yes to save that out. Okay. So obviously we just scratched the surface of body paint. Just kind of wanted you to show you that it's here, because there's really a lot of information to cover in this section here. Okay, really, really powerful. You can work with layers and blending layers together for your different channels. You can have multiple channels and layers for each material to really create a complete project. Okay. So I just want you to be aware that that's there, and you can use the Paint Setup Wizard to get started really quickly and then do some experimentation on it. Okay, so now that we're done with materials and texturing, we're going to move on to the rest of our project, including sections on things like rigging and animation, lighting and rendering, and so you really get an all-around view of Cinema 4D. So I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of sections. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one.